Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our sixth evening in Malibu. For tonight, we have with us a guest speaker from the University of California at Berkeley, esteemed Professor Richard Muller. In the pantheon of gifts from Cal, Professor Muller is a close second to Aaron Rodgers. And as a USC Trojan, I'm happy to finally have the big gun from Cal on my side. Basic science is so much a part of our lives, and yet very few of us are grounded in science or physics. If you think about education, entertainment, travel, computing, our use of energy, our food supply, our national security, environment, all compelling and all changing, right along with the scientific discovery and engineering. At the policy level, then, our leaders certainly need to understand the natural world, the laws of nature, and the current setting of our science and where it stands today.
Certainly the greatest honor I ever had was having my class voted best class at Berkeley in all fields. And just for physics to rank like that, it's been such a reward to teach that class. Unexpected and wonderful. I get emails from all around the world thanking me and the university for doing this. And it's been a great enlightenment to me. It's based on years of experience I've had at high-level consulting on U.S. national security issues. My way of teaching the scientific method largely consists of letting the students know when I don't know the answer instead of trying to fake it. So the science has a certain honesty to it. And now that I'm deeply involved in global warming and already being viciously attacked by bloggers who think they know what we're going to conclude, even when I don't yet know, I'll give you a little preview of that at the end. Let's get going, and I will try very hard to be nonpartisan. I will stick to the science. That's my strength. And if I depart from that, as I will from time to time, I'll try to remember to let you know that now I'm giving you an opinion and something that's not exactly hard science. So I will do that from time to time. But this first slide here, something everybody needs to know. This is immensely important. Here, at offset 0, down at the bottom, so beware of that. But this are the carbon dioxide emissions of China compared to those of the United States. Now, you notice the United States is growing, but China is shooting up. And this is determining policy on energy, on global warming, on everything. And you don't hear it said very often. I've been told by a top science advisor for the UK not to show this. Because if you show this, people in the United States will think the problem has to do with China, not the United States. Let me update this plot. This shows 2006. Let me now, there was a report last year by the Netherlands group estimated what's happening. The United States has gone down a little bit. Mostly because of our recession, not because of any good intents. But China has continued to go up. They have been growing at about 10% per year in their CO2 emissions. They're now 50% above the United States emissions. And they're continuing to grow. Under the Copenhagen Treaty, had it been signed and ratified, and had everybody abided by it, this shows a growth of China and India of 6% per year, assuming they abided by the treaty. These are the carbon dioxide emissions per year. And as you can see, they're way above the US right now, and they'll continue going up. What the US does is irrelevant. And this is not talked about, and people tell me don't talk about it because you'll insult the Chinese. And seriously. The fact is, when Al Gore says there should be no restrictions on the Chinese, he is not working out the numbers. Either that or he's not telling you the numbers. When you see in the newspapers a report that the projections for carbon dioxide are worse than they were last year, the reason is because the Chinese emissions are worse than people had expected. It's not from the US. Our emissions have been going down thanks to the recession. According to the consensus, the global warming caused since 1957 is half a degree Celsius. Of that, they say most of this has come from the United States. Or from carbon dioxide, not the United States. Most of it's come from carbon dioxide. Let's say most is 80%. So let's say 0.4 degrees Celsius of global warming coming from human burning fossil fuels. Just accept that for the moment. 0.4. How much comes from the United States? That's 0.1, one quarter of that. More than our fair share, according to some people's measure of fairness. But let's just do the numbers. 1/10 of a degree Celsius came from all the bad behavior of the United States in the distant past. How much of that came from our automobiles? One quarter of that. We're now talking about 0.025 degrees Celsius from our automobiles. And now we're pushing, it's subsidizing electric vehicles so that the next 0.025, 1/40th of 1 degree Celsius may not happen. Meanwhile, China and India are shooting way up like this. And what you see is the second warmest year, and according to this, the warmest year on record was 1998, and the second warmest year on record was 1933. But in fact, they have been going down. Wildfires, he says wildfires have been going up. In fact, the area of wildfires has been going up a little bit, but the number of wildfires has been going down. In this case, I did find out what it was he did. He decided not to do the total wildfires, even though he had done total tornadoes, but instead he did damaging wildfires throughout North America. Something I call cherry picking. If you look through enough statistics, you'll find one that's bad. Put that in your movie. And he could have shown this, showing wildfires are going down, but he chose not to. That was a terrible, terrible movie. I don't know if you know this, but it was, they distributed the movie to the UK. They're going to show it in every school got a free copy. And a parent brought a court case to stop it, saying it was propaganda and it was politics. The court actually heard the case, ruled in favor of the parent, said these movies can be shown, but they have to be accompanied by a list of 9 major errors that are in the movie, An Inconvenient Truth. This was a judge's ruling. Al Gore chose to withdraw the movie rather than show it with a list of 9 major errors. Wow. I think it would have been much more educational if they still showed the movie with a list of 9 errors. I think that would have been ideal. Let's talk about ClimateGate. If I had published this, if any scientist that I respect had published it, this is not what they would have published. Let me show you what it is in the original data. Are you ready? These are the original data. Okay? Notice the difference? Wow. How did they get from that to that? Wow. Because we got to read their emails, we know how they got from one to the other. Now, the emails, by the way, we believe were part of a package put together by the Freedom of Information Act officer. They were not random emails. They were the package he put together to release that he was persuaded not to release. They were not hacked. Most of the people in this business who know the field and know what's going on believe they were leaked by one of the authors who was really upset with the way his own collaborators were handling everything. Whether that was their intention or not, I don't know, but that's what they did. When I saw these plots, my reaction was, I'm never going to read another paper by these scientists. You have to trust a scientist. You have to trust that he's showing you both sides and everything, and his conclusions are strong regardless of the counter evidence. That's what we do in science. I don't want to read these people's papers anymore. Now, remember this plot? Guess who it was who produced that plot? Same people. This really shook me up. The people I had trusted, the ones I use in my book, are the ones who had cheated, in my opinion. They were exonerated, but you saw what they did. He did talk about alternative energy, but there are 2 issues for alternative energy. One is to cut back on the carbon dioxide, which causes global warming, or probably causes global warming in my mind. Not proven, but very likely. The other is energy security. Half of our deficit, more than half of our deficit, comes from our oil imports. So this is really hurting our economy. Plus our dependence. We are, because of the oil that we're using, there are many people who are making lots of money that I don't necessarily approve of around the world. Let's talk about alternative energy. Cost of energy, very, very different depending on the convenience. Coal, it's 2 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity. And it's cheaper than that if you're using it for heat. Compare that, natural gas is low also. Gasoline, much more expensive. This was at $3 a gallon. Much more expensive than coal or natural gas. In San Francisco, half of the taxis now are running on natural gas. Why? Because it's cheaper. These taxi drivers have to pay their own gas bills. You can make more income if you switch over to natural gas. It's easy to switch an automobile to natural gas. A little bit of retuning, all you do is lose some trunk space. Computer batteries. People say they're cheap because you just get electricity. But remember, the carbon dioxide problem isn't coming from the United States. Well, we have to set an example for China. Here's the catch. Suppose we set an example for China by spending whatever it takes to reduce our own carbon dioxide to prove our hearts are in the right place. Will China follow? No, not if it's expensive. They can't afford to. They're a poor country. That's not physics, so I'm drifting off a little into things outside my realm of expertise. But I think any example that we follow, if it isn't profitable, it isn't sustainable. And this has to do with biofuels. Synthetic fuels are, well, I mean, we need liquid energy security, but if we're going to actually affect the rest of the world, I'll say that in every one of the next slides. They need, what can they do? Energy conservation. I'm very optimistic about solar in China, much more so than I am optimistic about solar in the US. The reason is they have cheap labor, and it's the maintenance and installation that's really expensive here. The cost of the solar cells is dropping so fast, pretty soon it's going to be about zero. So it's going to be the installation. You have to wipe off the dust and so on, and that's a lot cheaper in China. And the land is a lot cheaper. It costs $20 a square foot to install anything in the United States. Anyway, wind has a great future too, nuclear, clean coal. These are all things, but it has to be profitable, and that's the catch. In 1850, there were only a few locations, and so we can only estimate the temperature here, and a little bit in India. You'll see these spots come and go as temperature stations report or stop reporting. So I'll narrate what's happening. If you look on the bottom, you'll see the actual temperature going up and down and bouncing around. This trend here is what is the global warming. We haven't corrected for urban heat island or other things, but basically we are so far seeing that global warming does appear to be real and in agreement with what the IPCC has reported. So let me now run the movie, and now you can see the temperature around the world changing with time. We are 1854. A little bit of the coverage comes and goes in India, getting New Zealand, and the blue means it's cold, and the orange and red means it's warm. And you see these pulses coming and going, generally associated with El Nino, but now we think we have a better source for it. We believe it's actually what's called the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt is more important than El Nino. I'm currently writing a paper with that. I think this is extremely important, that the conveyor belt is having a big effect. So now we're up into the 1880s, and we're getting amazingly good world coverage, still missing Central Africa, but we're beginning to get South America now, and now it's really good coverage, and it's 1892. Again, the pulses, you can see those pulses. Those pulses are really very interesting. And as I say, I believe those are associated with what's called the global thermohaline circulation, or the big weather conveyor belt. Look at it being warm in some places in Europe when it's cold in the US, and the other way around. The consistent pattern, the fluctuations you see are actually much larger, particularly in the northern hemisphere, than are the gradual changes. This is why it's so hard to sense global warming. Are the fluctuations increasing with time? You can look at them, and they're not increasing with time. So now we're up into 1928. Watch the West. Watch the western United States. Okay? And there's the Dust Bowl right there. Okay? And again, these pulses, because El Nino, even though it's an equatorial Pacific, has a big effect. The fluctuations in Siberia are really large because it's landlocked. We're up now in 1947, 48, 49, 1950. So we're getting close to wait till you get up to 1998. That was the warmest year in record. Remember, it hasn't increased much in the last 13 years. But these are all our own calculations based on more complete usage of the data than anybody has ever done before. So we are really making a lot of progress with this. You see those big cold spells, big hot spells. 1977, 1978. It's getting a little bit warmer. You can see that here, one of these peaks. And it's moving around. But we're getting 1988. Take a look at 1998. This was what I call the panic of 98. Here we go. Wow. 97, 98, the panic of 98. The IPCC report written based on those data was in a panic. They thought they were tipping points, that we had gone over the edge, that if we didn't do something in the next year or two, it would be too late. And we've gone through several of those tipping points. Here we are up to the present. Since then, the bottom line on tipping points is that none of them have held up with time.